In the heart of the savannah, a heartbreaking scene unfolds. A cheetah trapped in barbed wire, bleeding on the edge of death. A man stops his car, gets out alone, and approaches the wild animal. What he didn't expect was that the rest of the pack would appear and remain, watching his every move. But the most shocking was yet to come, because instead of attacking, these cheetahs did something no one could have imagined. A breathtaking and unforgettable story. Stay until the end. This connection between man and nature will deeply move you. It was supposed to be just another ordinary day of patrolling the vast green spaces of Manu National Park. The sun was beginning to rise, bathing the savannah in its gentle light, while natural tranquility dominated the landscape. Rodrigo, an experienced guide, was driving slowly in his vehicle along the red dirt road, carefully watching for any signs of wildlife around him. He knew every sound, every movement, every smell of this land, as if it were an extension of his own body. But that morning, something forced him to brake abruptly. A strange sound, muffled but desperate, broke the monotony of the open forest, a sound that didn't match the peace that surrounded him. Rodrigo turned off the engine and listened. The sound repeated, a weak growl, followed by a sharp and hoarse whimper. This wasn't the sound of hunting. This was a pleading cry. Carefully he got out of the car. The air seemed thicker. The bushes along the road swayed gently in the wind, but the sound came from afar, where the vegetation opened into a grassy area. Rodrigo took confident but quiet steps. As he approached, the sound became clearer, more heartbreaking. And then he saw her. Among the yellowed grass, beside old barbed wire forgotten by time, a young cheetah was struggling. Her paws were trapped between twisted wires, and her body already showed deep wounds. Blood stained her golden fur with red lines, and the cheetah's eyes, once a symbol of power and speed, were now filled with fear and pain. Rodrigo stopped for a moment. Time seemed frozen. The scene before him was both terrifying and mesmerizing. The wild predator was helpless, not against another animal but against a human artifact. A careless move, a trace of destructive presence. He knew the risk. A cheetah, even wounded, could still attack from instinct. But he also knew that at this moment, the animal didn't want to fight. It wanted to be free. Rodrigo took a deep breath, assessing the situation. The barbed wire was tightly tangled in the cheetah's front paws, tightened by her own desperate movements. Her muscles trembled, and the sound she made was a mixture of pain and pleading. Rodrigo returned to the car and took the rescue tool he always carried, sturdy cutting pliers. He knew he would need precision, calm, and courage. When he returned, he kept his gaze on the animal. The cheetah watched him, breathing heavily but showing no aggression. It was as if she knew he was there to help. Rodrigo approached slowly, without sudden movements. His steps softly sank into the grass, and the wind seemed to hold its breath. A few meters away, he knelt down. His eyes met the cheetah's eyes, an intense and wild gaze, but full of an inexplicable feeling. At that moment, they weren't a man and a predator. They were two living beings, united by something stronger than fear, the need for trust. Rodrigo slowly extended his hand, assessing the wires and wounds. He knew he couldn't make a mistake. One false move and everything could end badly. But there he was, before the unthinkable, a man, alone, before a wounded cheetah, ready to risk everything for a chance to save her. As Rodrigo began to cut the first wires with slow and precise movements, the silence around him seemed absolute. The cheetah trembled but didn't react violently. Time seemed suspended, until suddenly a rustling in the nearby bushes broke the silence. Rodrigo instinctively stopped and looked around. The sound was gentle but rhythmic, and then he saw them. Among the shadows of vegetation, pairs of eyes were watching him in silence. It wasn't just one cheetah. It was an entire pack. 3, 4, 5 silhouettes stood out in the tall grass. The cheetahs moved slowly, almost synchronously, their slender bodies barely touching the ground. They approached quietly, without growling, without running, but with an alertness that made Rodrigo's heart beat faster. He knew that cheetahs don't exactly live in packs like other cats, but these seemed united by family bonds, and now there they were, slowly surrounding him, as if assessing the scene. Rodrigo remained motionless for a few seconds. Any sudden movement could cause a defensive reaction, but to his surprise, the cheetahs showed no threat. Their eyes weren't focused on him, but on their wounded companion, still moaning on the ground. Most impressive was their behavior. Instead of scattering or moving forward with predatory instinct, They formed a circle around the wounded cheetah, maintaining distance, as if they understood that this man was trying to help. Rodrigo felt that something different was happening. These animals weren't acting only from instinct. There was a quiet intelligence there, almost sensitivity. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. The pack was there, watching, and he knew he was no longer alone. Each cut of the wire would also be a test of trust, not just from the wounded cheetah, but from all the wide eyes that were watching him. Rodrigo knew he couldn't hesitate. The wounded cheetah was in critical condition, and the pack around him watched his every move with disturbing attention. He knelt firmly, holding the cutting pliers with both hands, and began the process. The first wire was cut with utmost caution. A sharp crack rolled through the air, and the cheetah curled up, letting out a muffled moan. Rodrigo pulled back a little, keeping his hand extended in a calming gesture. The animal breathed heavily, muscles tense with pain, but remained motionless. The sound of the cut wire seemed louder than normal, as if the entire savannah were in absolute silence. Each new cut required precision. The wires were deeply tangled in the cheetah's legs, and any false move could cause even more serious wounds. Rodrigo murmured soft words, without any specific meaning but with a soothing tone. It was as if he wanted to tell the cheetah, "I'm here, I won't hurt you." And surprisingly, the animal seemed to understand. Her eyes remained focused on Rodrigo, and even in moments of intense pain, she showed no aggression, only quiet agony, as if accepting that this man was there out of compassion, not threat. Sweat ran down Rodrigo's forehead, and his hands trembled slightly. But he didn't stop. Wire by wire, he freed the cheetah, who was already beginning to lose strength. Blood oozed from her paws, but the bleeding seemed controlled. The group of cheetahs around remained alert and motionless, as if understanding that any interference at this moment could ruin everything. And so time passed slowly, as if the entire world had stopped to observe this simple but deeply symbolic gesture. A man kneeling on the ground, freeing a wild predator with his own hands, while nature, for a moment, decided to trust. As soon as the last wire was cut, Rodrigo slowly moved away, allowing the cheetah to try to move. For a moment she remained lying down, breathing heavily, her body still trembling. Then, with visible effort, she placed her front paws on the ground and slowly stood up. The wounds were deep, but the will to stay on her feet seemed stronger. The pack, until then motionless, began to approach. Rodrigo prepared to step back, but something extraordinary happened. The cheetahs approached, not with hostility but with gentleness. One of them approached the wounded cheetah and gently touched her shoulder with his snout, as if saying, "You're safe now." And then one of the cheetahs looked directly at him, at Rodrigo. His eyes expressed neither fear nor threat, but something deeper, rarer, recognition. It was only a few seconds, but it was enough. A quiet and inexplicable communication, no aggressive movement, no alarm sound, only presence. The pack surrounded the wounded cheetah, creating a shield around her. And with confident steps, they began to move away together, leading her back to freedom. Rodrigo remained motionless, breathing deeply, absorbing what he had just witnessed. The jungle, for a moment, had accepted him as one of its own. What do you think of this story? Leave your opinion and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.